Then we discovered Framer. I was hearing about it for a little bit in my Twitter feeds and just from certain people, and they're like, Framer's great, Framer's great, Framer's great. And one day I finally decided to actually jump in there and give it a shot. And it just felt familiar. It had that Figma feel to it. It kind of also had that blend of like how you might actually build something in Webflow.
Hey Ryan, what's up, man?
Hey Ryan, how are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, this is going to be a dive deep conversation. There's so many things I want to cover here, but for people who are just listening for the first time, Ryan has just created the most amazing Framer course for us at Flux, and we're launching it this week. So you want to make sure you check it out this week. We have a special promotion price on the Framer course, so go check it out. But in this conversation, we're going to dive into Ryan's whole story. How did he get started? How did he get to where he is today? All of the things that he's doing. And he's doing so many things I want to hear about. So yeah, Ryan, let's get started. I think I saw you first on Instagram around 2019 doing content, for Pitch Proof originally. Tell us the story from the beginning. Like, how did you get into design? How did you start posting content? And like, you went through so much, worked on so many projects. Break down the timeline for us.
Yeah, it's been a journey of probably 8 years now, which is insane to think about because I still think I've got like a baby face. Essentially how I...
How old are you, by
22.
the way? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I'm 22. Yeah, I like to co-working sort of space here, and everyone else is in like their 30s. And I like to brag about the fact that I was born in the 2000s and everybody else is born in a completely other century. But yeah, my kind of journey started as a designer. So I kind of got started by entering design contests online, fairly early. And through that, obviously started to land a couple of like freelance projects, like things like logo designs and branding, all the way to like animations and doing some very early websites.
Wait. I know people on my podcast hate that I interrupt people, but I have to ask. I'm trying to do the math. 22 minus 8, that's like 14.
That's right.
How do you enter, like, you're in school. How do you even know about design and getting into design contests? What are you using? Have you learned like Photoshop? Like what?
Yeah. So the basic answer is a cracked version of Photoshop that, I was just kind of playing around with, and a little bit of Illustrator as well. I was always really interested in just technology and creativity. I used to draw a lot as a kid, and that kind of, broke away into design just kind of naturally. And I was literally just like entering design contests for fun. I didn't really expect anything of it. I wasn't expecting to, become an entrepreneur or start a business. I didn't even know what entrepreneur meant at 14 years old. And I had somehow already started a business without realizing it was a business. And then, very quickly you learn that, hey, there's a lot more to design than just making things look pretty on a computer screen. And that was actually something that was really quite interesting to me. I actually liked the idea of building something bigger than just what was on a screen and actually creating things. And, this is where we kind of go forward a couple of years after freelancing throughout school and then starting Pitch Proof, which initially started as a software company for a piece of software to build logo presentations. And through that journey, we built
so just let me just understand the timeline. You're in school doing design contests and then starting to freelance as designer, doing like logo projects. At what point do you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to start a software company? Because it doesn't sound like something I was thinking about when I was in school.
Sure. I think it just came from wanting to solve my own problem. At the time, I was doing a lot of design work for like brand identity, and I was pitching a lot and presenting a lot. And that was something that I really enjoyed the process of learning about. Just like, how do I actually pitch and sell to clients? And I realized there was actually this kind of like gap here in the market at that stage. And ultimately, I just wanted to solve my own problem. And as I started to talk about it a lot more, I realized that other people had the problem. And again, without actually realizing what I was doing, I was actually just building another business for myself. So what started as like an internal personal project actually became something bigger. So initially we started as like a piece of software to kind of present your logos online to different clients. And then through that process of
Who is we? How did you get a partner for
sure.
this idea,
Yeah.
or how did you do the development?
So initially, my brother, who's a software engineer, was the kind of person who kind
Got
of
it.
built that initial MVP. Then over time, Pitchproof, as it became like an online event sort of like content platform, actually my neighbor Tom, who's now the co-founder of my other startup that we work on, we've been neighbors for like 18 years, and just like his kind of like interests were in like live streaming and production. So it just kind of went hand in hand. And now he's a developer too, so that's really useful for this other software company that we're creating. So it's just been kind of a little bit crazy, to be honest, in terms of like the people who I've been close to for many, many years, and being able to collaborate with them now in a work environment. Yeah, like there's been a lot of pivots throughout my 8 years or so as like a working professional. And what I've always kind of
Wait, let's stay there.
Yeah.
So you decided you want to build this peach-proof company software to do pitching.
Right.
And by the way, when you mean pitching, you mean pitch to sell to a client, hey, work with me, or pitch, here's the creative execution of the project.
That's right.
What do you mean
Here's
by
my
pitching?
work. Let me sell you on the designs that I've already done.
Got it. Okay. So you started working on this like software project, and then you started creating content on Instagram to promote it, I guess, or to find clients, or to get as a marketing strategy.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it started. We were essentially, or I was essentially posting 3 times a day of just like different logo inspiration. And it was one of those, 2018.
This is still while
2019
you're in
accounts.
school?
Yes, still while I'm in school.
And you're still in school?
Yeah. So yeah, posting very consistently, and just kind of out of nowhere, this kind of carousels thing came to be, which we all know is like the educational carousels, Instagram of design content. And I think we were like very, very early with Pitchproof on like being one of the first adopters with that. And that just created this exponential growth. Like within a matter of weeks, we were growing like 1,000 followers a day, 1,000 followers a day, 1,000 followers a day. And we essentially went from about 3,000 followers to about 50,000 followers in a case of a couple of months, which was just insane for me. And again, through that process, like the software company, like it had a lot of sort of roadmap and things to go, but I actually found myself more invested into the content and the community that I wanted to build, because it actually felt more personal to me, and I actually felt like I was creating more of an impact. And then that kind of leads us to 2019, where we had this audience, we were doing different things and experimenting with content and, brand partnerships, and starting to pull in some like sponsored posts and things like that. And then we went, hey, what if we take this network of all these influencers and creators in the design space, and what if we bring them together? Because at the time, no one was actually doing like online events. No one was doing these big live streams that actually felt like a proper production. And we're like, hey, we can actually be the first to actually do this. So in 2019, we actually held the first online design conference. Yes, pre-pandemic. And it was called Front Row. And we did it in October. I think it was October 4th, and I'll always remember it. And it was essentially a 5-hour live stream on YouTube. And we had the likes of your Christos and your Mark Janders and all these sort of big names in the designs. And we essentially just did a massive Q&A session, but it was kind of, the whole idea was to just bring the whole design community together. And from that, we got ourselves sponsors, and we kind of just found this new interest and this new way to impact people, which was through live content.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so you never thought about this as the business. It was just like, here's an opportunity to do it, but then it started maybe generating money. You didn't sell tickets, right? The event itself was free, but you've had sponsors, or?
Yeah, that's right. That's how we kind of generated money from it. But
so what happened? What happened next from there?
Yeah, and then kind of from that, we realized that, hey, Instagram content, as great as it is in terms of like, generating an audience, it's still a little bit fatiguing. We kind of get stuck in this ideation of just consuming content, and we actually want to create this deeper connection. At the stem of everything that we do, it's like, how do we create more impact? And, through all the sort of things that I've done, like that's always been the next step. It's like, how do I create even more impact? How do I create even more impact? So when we kind of discovered our love of creating this sort of live content, we really doubled down on it. And over the past next couple of years, obviously the pandemic hit, everyone went remote, and we all kind of felt the pain of Zoom fatigue. But we continued to create this live content that was exceptional in terms of delivery. We had the fancy cameras, we had the fancy production, we got the best speakers. We didn't just let people share their screen. We actually created these interactive experiences that people actually wanted. And we just continued to kind of build that up. And then from that, we essentially essentially by accident kind of positioned ourselves as like this expert in terms of like creating these live events and live content. And then that's where at the end of 2021 and in early 2022, we actually pivoted and we said, hey, PitchProof's been great. It's done a lot. We've created a lot of impact. There's still a lot of problems with the actual business model and making that sustainable. But what we've found that we really love is the core of what we're doing, which is this content delivery in the form of live content. And that's where my co-founder Tom and I, who, also ran PitchProof, decided we're going to run another software company called Storytell, which ultimately is the kind of end solution for us in terms of building these live experiences that tackles, Zoom fatigue and being able to create deeper connection in an interface that actually feels humanizing. That kind of takes us to almost where we are now. This has kind of been the journey for the past 18 months. We've been working, we've been building, we're in this private beta, we're trying to raise investment.
Are you bootstrapping this? Are you raising money for this business?
We're trying to raise some VC cash at the moment too. And this project has been a super passionate one of mine, and it's been this kind of project that has been the big one that we kind of go, hey, let's put all our eggs or majority of our eggs into this, and let's take this seriously and see how big we can grow it. And that's been a super fun journey. And yeah, I guess.
And what is your what is your role in the partnership? I mean, you have, I guess Tom is a technical founder, and you're doing what the product, the marketing, like what is?
Yeah, I essentially lead like everything else, right? So your operations, your product, your marketing, all that. As an early stage founder, you kind of juggle many hats.
Curious to ask, how old is Tom?
He's 1 year younger than me, so he's 21.
Oh, crazy. Crazy. Okay. Silicon Valley type kids running the world. I feel so old. Nice. Okay. So now tell me where Framer came into your life and the picture.
Yeah, so it was probably only 2-3 months ago, to be totally honest. So actually, let me backtrack a little bit to like the freelance days and over the past few years. So obviously building a startup's great. I've been taking on a few little like client projects here and there over the past few years too. And a lot of that I've actually been building in Webflow. And, Webflow was a great sort of like power up for me because it let me obviously, design and develop and essentially become this full stack designer, which was really powerful and valuable.
Please sell me on Webflow.
But then we discovered Framer, right? And I think like I was hearing about it for a little bit in my Twitter feeds and just from certain people, and they're like, Framer's great. And one day I finally decided to actually jump in there and give it a shot. And it just felt familiar. It had that Figma feel to it. It kind of also had that blend of like how you might actually build something in Webflow. And it felt really powerful, to be honest. And it just felt different. And, after chatting to the Framer guys as well and just reading what people had said on Twitter, like, I realized there's actually something really powerful here that is only the very beginning. And, where it can go is, the unknown, but it has a huge amount of power. And literally the day I discovered it, I built my first landing page within 4 hours. And I felt like it was a pretty high quality landing page. Like everything was built really cleanly. I already understood, the basics of HTML and CSS and how you build a decent and proper and scalable site. So it was actually really easy to build something. And then I posted that on Twitter. I'm like, hey, I was thinking about selling this, but I'm actually just going to give it away for free. And long and behold, and what I didn't know is that the Twitter community for Framer is pretty crazy and pretty hyped up at the moment. And that started to generate a ton of traffic pretty quickly. And so just kind of being the opportunist and person that I am, I'm like, hey, there might actually be something here. So I started to create a lot more content and started to build that up and started to actually learn a lot more about Framer and how I can actually become a master in it. And then quickly, I essentially replicated what I did with PitchProof in terms of content, but for this kind of Framer ecosystem and community that's being built. And then from that, like I had a lot of people asking me like, hey, we want to learn Framer from you. So the kind of next step to that is to actually, build a masterclass, a proper masterclass, because Framer doesn't have a huge amount of educational resources. So I was kind of like one of the first, again, to kind of launch something in that space and to do it properly. And that kind of takes us to where we are, right? Like we're now in a partnership with Flux, which is awesome. We're providing a ton of value to over 150 students and counting. Like there's just so many different things that are going on at the moment. And there's just a huge amount of potential within this Framer ecosystem that's being built, and it quite literally is giving designers superpowers. And that's what's really exciting to me. all these other sort of journeys and things that are going on to date. Like, again, all I want to do is create as much impact as possible. And obviously my heart and background is in design. So I want to serve and help these people as much as possible. And I think Frame is a really good opportunity to actually help designers grow and essentially just become a lot more powerful and impactful as designers themselves. So that's why I'm really interested and, invested in actually helping people master this tool.
That's awesome. So a few interesting things here. Number one is not about Framer actually, but it turns out, or I hear from you about the shift from Instagram to Twitter, which is funny because as you've mentioned, you started off building your community and your brand on Instagram. Now you're on Twitter. I'd love to hear, how did that happen? Why do you think that happened? Kind of like, how do you see the gap between that? And then we'll get back to Framer because I think it's actually an interesting topic at the moment.
Yeah, I think the design community as a whole is a little bit more mature on Twitter. I think one of the kind of problems that we had with Pitchroof, and even though we had a huge amount of audience, like they were quite young and beginner in terms of who they were as a designer and the kind of content that we want to target and who we actually want to mature to was actually, that slightly more senior advanced designer, someone who is working full time as a freelancer, not just dabbling in it. So there was a kind of lot of problems that occurred with actually kind of like creating products for that audience that we just couldn't really serve much longer. And I think we did a great job in terms of, what we did and the impact that we created. Like we did some incredible stuff, but it was kind of like a step where it's like, hey, we can't create as much impact anymore. So, who else can we serve and what's next? And then I think like with Twitter and Framer specifically, like I think Twitter's a really interesting platform. I don't care if the platform's Threads, the new one, the Twitter, the TikTok. I don't care what the platform is. What I care about is where are those people and where are they actually sitting for that content and where do they want that content? And I think the main two places is Twitter and YouTube, right? And I think like Twitter's the kind of immediate place that this Framer community is at. I think it's slowly evolving to YouTube. So I'll probably put some more effort and energy into there. But it's like, I don't care on the platform as long as it's meeting and serving the right people.
No, I'm just interested in this because I've actually felt myself migrating as well. I don't know why this happened, but I was very active a few years ago on Instagram. I think I kind of burned out as well on the carousels and that type of content, the stories as well. And now I'm mainly consuming content on Twitter. And it's an interesting kind of like take that maybe the audience there is a little bit more mature and it's more like conversational versus just, I don't know. Back to the Framer thing. So you've done a lot of things in terms of, it's not just educational content. You've also started creating like, I think templates, and then you have your forms product. So I see a lot of people monetizing on using Framer on multiple things, not just doing work for clients, but all kinds of different things. Can you talk about that and kind of like the opportunities that you see?
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of opportunity within this ecosystem that Framer itself are creating for creators. Obviously, the biggest one, which they get over 100 submissions a week, is for people to list their website templates on their store. And the really great benefit about that is creators actually get to keep 100% of the commission. Framer don't take an inch, which is an awesome model, obviously for creators, and obviously they get the exposure of the Framer website, which gets tens of thousands of visitors per week.
Is it different on Webflow, by the way? Are you familiar with the Webflow template scene? I've never published a template on Webflow, and I don't know, but I haven't seen as many people talk about that.
Yeah, I'm not too sure actually. I believe they might take a commission Webflow. I'm not too sure, to be totally honest. But since the kind of like checkout experience is external to Framer, I don't think they've really just bothered with it. But yeah, they kind of like partner program and things like that too is really beneficial. It's essentially a free program that you can sign up with on Framer, and if you get accepted, they essentially give you a little affiliate and referral link, which you can send to your clients. So let's say I design a website, I might charge 10K for the website, but the hosting is external and the client's paying for the hosting. I can give them a specific sign up link to Framer, and I think I get 50% of the revenue that's generated within the first 12 months of that client. So, let's say they pay $1,000 a year for hosting.
I think that's similar in Webflow. I think I have that link as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting. So tell me about your forms product. How did you think about this? How did you create it? How are you monetizing it?
Yeah. So the kind of forms product that's being built is like a custom form solution. So within Framer, you can't actually do, pretty custom forms. Like there's forms that you can do, but they're very limited in terms of the capabilities. And the kind of solution that was built is this, essentially native form solution within Framer that lets you have unlimited input fields and different sort of fields and unlimited sort of styling capabilities. And that kind of stemmed from the community and the audience that I built, and understanding what their problems were, understanding what my problems were, because I'm still building in Framer every single day. I'm realizing that this is a massive problem that people actually need a solution for. And again, it's like, how do we create impact and how do we solve people's problems? And if I can kind of like tick those two boxes off, then I actually think it's a good product to build. Then we'll actually put time into it and we'll actually go ahead and build it.
Was this also developed with Tom?
No.
Well?
So I used a bit of custom code to actually write this. Now, I don't write code at all, but luckily we have something called GPT now, and you can essentially feed all the information into ChatGPT, and with a little bit of problem solving, you can actually build something quite complex.
That's interesting and impressive. So basically, just for me to understand, because I've never done that before, is that like you build up some kind of like a React component or something like that people copy and paste, or like how did that work? How do people use it?
Yeah, so within Framer, there's two sort of like developer tools you can go with. There's something called overrides and something called code components. So an override is something that you apply to an existing element within Framer. So let's say I have a frame and I want to apply an override. That essentially just applies code over the top and overrides everything else within that frame. A code component is pretty similar to just any other sort of component within Framer, but it actually gives you the flexibility to build that as a React, which is like a technology for writing code within the Framer canvas. So this is really powerful as well. Personally, the Framer forms uses a little bit of both and a little bit of logic. But how this was actually achieved using GPT is essentially took the developer documentation on framer.com, fed that into GPT, and just kind of like asked it a few prompts and kind of figured out what I needed to do to kind of install that and kind of write the code for me. I guess one of the benefits here is you can't just go, hey, create me a custom form. Like you still need to come at it from a technical perspective and understand what the limitations are and what that process needs to look like so you can actually get the best results.
Dude, that's really interesting. Love it. And how do you make money out of it? Like people purchase it, or like?
Yeah, it's a lifetime plan.
What do you do with it?
Yeah, it's like 50 US for a lifetime plan, gives you instant access for life. Now, I'm sure at some point, like I see this product as like a temporary solution for Framer. I'm sure at some point Framer's going to come out with their own sort of custom forms, and I'm fine with that. There might always be a version that's slightly more advanced and slightly more technical than what Framer came out with. But I think people just kind of want that pain point solved now. And, I think there's over 80, 90 people who have paid for it already and who are kind of got lifetime access. So, I'm just trying to continue to serve these people until Framer builds something that's substantial.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'm really impressed by the speed in which they're operating, because they're rather, I guess, small team and they move very fast. So what is, in your perspective, like the biggest opportunity today? If people are, they're interested in the course because they're excited about Framer, like what is the biggest opportunities, or what would be your strategy for succeeding with it?
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit of Framer to me and to the students as a designer is just the familiarity of the platform itself. Like I like to say, it is the no-code builder for Generation Figma. Like it has a very similar interface. It has a very similar feel. So actually coming across from a Figma environment to Framer, like it does feel native and natural. You still need to understand like how you actually build things with layout and, positioning and sizing and what that sort of like build structure looks like. But once you sort of master that, like the rest is pretty similar to what you probably already have mastered as a designer. So it is really powerful. And personally, like I can build a lot quicker in Framer than I can do in Webflow, which I think is incredibly powerful as well. So there's a huge amount of benefits to it. I still think the platform is like quickly growing and they're releasing a lot too, which is exciting. As you mentioned, they close the loop really well with their customers and they kind of give them what they ask for pretty quickly as well, even though they're a small team. So there's a huge amount of benefits growing within Framer, and I think it's only a matter of time before that grows even more.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And I've noted, that a lot of people are coming to it who are already working in Webflow, are interested in, learning this tool as well. Some of them, yeah, maybe just want to simplify the process on smaller projects and stuff like that. A lot of other people are coming from Squarespace, Wix types of platforms where I think they were limited with like the ready-made components, and they're just like, yeah, excited about the freeform abilities.
Yeah, like the biggest pain point we kind
Nice.
of get from our students that on board is two things. Number one, yeah, they are sick of like your Wixes and your Squarespaces, and they want to turn their designs into something functional so they can become this, superpowered designer that's full stack. Or they don't like the complexity and technicality of Webflow because it doesn't feel native to them as a designer. And Framer kind of gives them that solution that does feel a lot more natural in terms of how you actually build something and design something.
So you've been working on a lot of projects, and obviously I think you buy into the notion of, hey, be diversified in terms of income streams, in terms of your projects. Let me know if I'm wrong about this, but I would love to hear your thoughts about like, how do you think about diversification versus focus? Like, how do you focus on so many things at the same time?
To be completely honest, it's still something I'm trying to learn how to manage. I know there's only so many hours a day and it's hard to kind of balance a lot of different things. And then, you have a lot of sort of responsibilities. And there's, as soon as you bring other people into the picture and you start to hire, or you've got business partners and things like that, like things change too. And you do realize you have a responsibility for these people as well. So to be honest, I don't have an answer in terms of like how I'm managing my time. At the moment, I think I need to manage it better, and I'm still trying to like figure out, I'm building the processes and trying to invest in the processes at the moment in terms of how I can actually build that so I can spend the time working on what I want to without kind of forgetting about everything else. So I really don't think there's an answer to it. Again, it just kind of comes down to me, like what do I ultimately want to do, what am I passionate about, and how can I create the most about impact. And if I kind of just continue to kind of tick off those boxes and do it in a way that's actually ethical and supportive of people that I'm working with, whether it be clients, students, customers, whoever, then that's a win to me. And at the moment it's been working. Who knows what the future holds, and who knows how it will work.
You've been able to execute a lot. I mean,
yeah, and that's like the benefit of moving
let me ask you that
quickly.
I mean, yeah, and you have been able to move very, very fast, especially on this Framer opportunity, which I think is great. I think it's a really great move and smart move. You're still young, but you have been doing a lot of things recently. Do you think you know what your, I don't know if to call this core strengths, superpower, but the thing that you enjoy most?
Yeah, so I'm a creator at heart, and I always like to say that I just want to build cool things with cool people. So whether that be a cool Framer course like this one, building that with you, or building an awesome company that does software to tackle Zoom, like that's another cool sort of product. I like to create things, and I like to see ultimately how much impact we can create with the things that we're creating, which is a blend of creativity and technology majority of the time.
Yeah, I feel you. I was going to say, if I have to look at you from the sides, like the thing that you've been doing best over the last few years is just being a very good creator, being able to put out really great content. And I'm asking this because, when I not got started, like back in 2018, I was also building a software company as well. It was called Prospero, kind of like a SaaS for proposals. And I was trying to do this, and I was creating YouTube videos, and then I created the Webflow course, and the course exploded. And that kind of just put it visually in my face that, yeah, I have this fantasy of being this tech software company CEO, but actually I'm really good at talking to the camera and teaching people stuff. And sometimes you find that, what you're really good at is not necessarily what you're trying to do. And again, I'm not saying that you should run your software company. I'm just saying that, from the sides, I can see that you're really good at creating content, bringing good vibe and education to people. Yeah, it's an interesting journey.
Yeah, like
funny randomly. So just to close, like a random tidbit. So we've sold that company, that software company, back in the end of 2018 for like almost no money at all, just because we wanted to move on. I moved to creating content. Yesterday, I was randomly on TikTok, and I fell upon a designer. He was like, here's my 3 tool for my freelance design. And the first tool that he showed was with this one was the tool that I created like 5 years ago. I was like, oh my God,
I did
took a
that. Yeah.
screenshot, sent to my technical
Yeah.
partner as well. I was just like, nice,
Yeah.
it still exists.
That's awesome.
Cool, man. So what is your vision for yourself for the future? Like, what do you imagine the next few years looking like?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to imagine, to be honest, just because things move too quickly. I'm very lean in terms of how I work and kind of how quickly I can move around with things. And I think like I'm just fortunate enough that I'm young enough to actually do that. You know, in 10 years, I think the responsibilities of myself will be completely different. And therefore, kind of how I spend my time will also be different. So it's hard to actually kind of imagine that. So I'm kind of just like taking each day as it is, but kind of like a founding principle and kind of what I want to continue to do is again, just build cool stuff with cool people and see how much impact we can create. And yeah, like I think there's a huge opportunity within this framer ecosystem that we're creating. I've recently just like put a bit of investment in terms of the money that's come in from the courses and things back into this business so we can continue to grow it. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And then obviously Storytell, my software company too, we're putting a lot of energy into that at the moment and just making sure that I enable the people on the team to actually work to the best of their abilities and make sure that they're seeing the value of it too. So yeah, I think ultimately, like I just want to get myself into this position where I can enable people to do their best work. And I like to kind of just like sit at that, higher level and just kind of have my say where I need to, but also butt out when I need to as well. And kind of just like be that big visionary and that person who, wants to ultimately make the world a slightly better place through creativity and tech.
Nice, man. Thank you, Ryan. It's been so awesome to chat in depth and hear your whole story. I'm really excited about our partnership and
Likewise.
the whole framer opportunity and space. Thank you for partnering with us. Thank you for putting great work into the world and yeah, making your dent.
Amazing. Thanks, Ryan.
Talk soon.
Thanks.
Bye.